machinery. I'm with Jenny Lecoat, who's a Jersey girl, and the speaker today at the Holocaust Memorial. How did you get roped into this one? How did you volunteer for it?
Well, funnily enough, Doug Ford and I go back a very long way, because the reason I got onto the comedy circuit is because I started off on the folk circuit here in the 1970s, and Doug was involved in that, so we knew each other from the mid-70s onwards. And when I was researching Another Mother's Son, extraordinarily I got in touch with the local museum and Doug Ford's name popped up. So I've known Doug over the last few years, and he asked me to come because the theme seemed to fit very well this year. I imagine probably at the end of his Rolodex as well.
People not knowing about the occupation. Strangely enough, your film here, the film you wrote for, lots of people here didn't know about it.
I find that truly extraordinary, to be honest. But it staggered me when I went to, because we had a huge premiere at the Odeon in Leicester Square, and various friends and family came along, and almost everyone who came up to me said, we had no idea. And I was... Or some people said, I knew something about them being occupied, but I didn't think it was that bad. The other thing, of course, that a lot of people say is, oh yes, they all collaborated, didn't they? That was part of the reason I wanted to write the film.
One of the films I thought about the film was, it's never easy to name the collaborators, is it?
Well, I didn't want to name the collaborators because no one was ever actually officially accused, and I didn't think that was my place to do it. But the family felt that it was the Vibert sisters, and they must have had their reasons for thinking that. But I could never find any evidence for why they had believed that, and I didn't want to put that in the film, and then it sort of posterity that becomes the truth.
Channel TV some years ago did a documentary, and they named them,
and many people think it was them, but I didn't find the evidence utterly compelling. I didn't think it would stand up in a court of law, and therefore I wanted to leave it as an open verdict.
Especially for a small community to name, because obviously the families are here, and if you do name people,
of course.
But it does.
I don't think the Vibert sisters, as far as I know, they were two spinsters. I don't think they had children, so I don't know if they'd have descendants. But in any circumstances, in terms of defaming someone that you don't want to say, it was definitely you without the evidence to do it.
The irony is one of the few names that comes up is Mrs. Baudin, who left the island, and you say there's a house in Hugh Street, or what used to be Hugh Street, and they say, oh, that's where Mrs. Baudin lived, and that's quite common knowledge. But do you think that's an important thing to leave out, or if you made the film again, would you like to include that sort of information about collaboration?
No, I very deliberately left it open, and I wanted people to go out realising that there was a number of people who would have had a motive to do it, and to maybe discuss it and argue about it, and to draw their own conclusions. In a way, it almost doesn't matter. The point is that somebody was prepared to do that, and in a community we have to know that there are people who will act very selfishly and very ignorantly. It almost to name them historically, I don't.
Having researched it and done that, could you now write another one? Has you got sufficient information?
I'm actually working on another occupation story at the moment, but until it gets a bit further down the line, I won't say any more at this point. But
because obviously, once you get into a subject, you realise how much information there actually is, don't you?
Oh, exactly. And when it's all in your head, you might as well crack on with something else and use the information you've got. So yes, I'm hopeful might be another project in the next year or two.
It's the serious side of what comedians get up to. Did you?
Well, I left comedy a long time ago. I've been writing a lot longer. Yes, I left comedy in about '93. But it's a different kind of career.
How often do you visit Jersey now?
I'm over probably since starting to research the film, probably a bit more often actually. My dad's still here, so I still come over and see the family.
I mean, your family, is it something they talked about much? Because you find this sort of later in life, people start to talk about it, don't they? These horrific events.
Well, actually, it was just always sort of part of the wallpaper, really. It was always known. But when you're young, you don't have a lot of interest in that sort of family history. I think my interest grew when I got into my 30s and 40s, and there were documentaries made for the 50th anniversary, and I remember thinking, God, that's my family they're talking about, and somebody ought to tell this story. So
you mentioned the family connection, where somebody had gone into one of the camps as a liberator. Was that Belsen they went into as a liberator, or?
My husband's grandfather went into Belsen as one of the liberators, and was one of the many liberators of the people there, including my great uncle Harold. So it's an extraordinary coincidence.
It is. No, and I worked.
And Mike, I'm going to have to go. I'm so
Okay,
sorry, but
I shall leave you go. Thank you for your
thanks.
time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you.